Hello, welcome to lecture 8 in our series. This lecture is the first lecture which will be one which you can come into. In other words, from lecture 7 onwards, once you've gone through lecture 7, you can jump into any lecture after that, because I've covered the main gematria. In fact, I've covered 5 systems of gematria up to including lecture 7. In this lecture we're going to look at the flag of Israel, and if we have time, which I'm probably not, we're going to look at the flag of the Union Jack, but that'll probably have to wait to lecture 9. So we're going to start with looking at the flag of Israel. The flag of Israel has a history to it. It was decided to make the flag of Israel based on the religious prayer shawl which Jews wear. We call it a talit or talis, and Jewish men wear it in the morning service, and on various other occasions like on Yom Kippur they might wear it all day. So this flag, based on that, says lines on it, 2 lines, one at the bottom, one at the top, and the Magen David in the middle, the shield of David or the Star of David, was added a bit later. And the colour blue was decided because blue was the colour of some talitim. They had blue stripes, mostly black, but you see them with blue as well. Nowadays you see them with other colours as well. So the question is, was it by chance? So this is a picture of the flag. This is one of my books, and this one is called The Spirit of God. The Zionists that decided the flag of Israel to be what it is probably did not know anything about what I'm going to tell you tonight. So why it comes out that there are some very special qualities about this flag is maybe a little bit puzzling. I first came across it actually when I was writing an earlier book which is called The Mystery of Water, and this book is inspired by Masaru Emoto, who wrote and researched on water crystals and showed that you could put words on bottles, for example, or even think good thoughts or bad thoughts, and that would change the crystalline structure of water. And you had to cool it down to a certain temperature, and crystals would appear, and they would form all sorts of beautiful shapes. Here's an example in my book. This one is got a bottle by the side of it, and the word on it, in Japanese I believe, is hope, and it comes out to be like the Star of David, and that's the basic structure of all the crystals which he comes up with, and that inspired me to write about water and look into the Star of David. So let's begin. I'm going to draw the flag, and what we have is a blue line here, and I'm going to put blue line, and we have a blue line at the bottom. I know there are some that might say it means from river to river, from the river of Nile unto the Euphrates, Israel will be free. The idea of the conquest of such a big amount of land by Israel, I think that's a bit of nonsense, but anyway. But I look at this, and when I saw this, I said to myself, well, with the Magen David, maybe it means the waters that are mentioned on the second day of creation, where they're the lower waters and the upper waters, and the Spirit of God in the middle. So we're going to see about that not too long. So we have a blue line and a blue line, and we have a blue Magen David. The blue Magen David, we're right here. Blue Magen. Magen is a Hebrew word to mean shield. David. Historically, we have no idea whether this goes back to King David. It seems to be a tradition that's passed on, but we'll show that his name is connected to it. If I were to work out the placement values of all these words that I've written up, I will find that they all add up to 40. B is 2, L is 12, U is 21, E is 5, If I add that up, I'll get 40. Line, 12, 9, 14, and 5. If I add that up, I get 40. Blue is 40. My gain, 13, 1, 7, 5, and 14. Add that, you get to 40. David, 4, 1, 22, 9, and 4. Add that up, you get to 40. Isn't that interesting that every single word there adds up to 40? So, what connected that to Walter was that the letter that represents 40 in Hebrew is the letter Mem, which looks like this. And the word for Hebrew, the Hebrew word for Walter is Mayim. That's water. In fact, it's a plural word. Because plural words in Hebrew, if they're masculine, they end in Yud Mem. So, since this ends in a Yud Mem, this really would mean waters. And feminine words that are plural, feminine nouns that are plural, would end in Ot. This is a masculine, and the singular would be just the Mem, one letter. And the Mem equals 40 in the normal value. So, since the Mem represents water, and 40, so this linked me to the whole idea of water connected with the lower waters, the upper waters, and what's the Magen David? Well, the Magen David would therefore represent like the upflow of water as it evaporates and the downflow as it rains, like the water cycle. And that is the main core of what this book is all about. This goes to the water cycle and how it's connected to the Star of David. Why the flag of Israel should be connected to the water cycle is a very interesting question. And that is because the water cycle itself is connected to something much more deeper. It's connected to the life on this planet, and that's connected to God's hashpa'ah, we call it, influx and influence in this world, and connected to the coming Messiah, where it says in Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah in English, in chapter 14, when there's be this big final war against Jerusalem, against Israel, and God will fight against the nations that come upon Israel, and in the end the nations would have to come up every single year on the festival of Sukkot, the Tabernacles, which is a festival which commemorates rain, and we pray for rain on that festival, and it says that those nations that do not come up will not get rain. So rain is connected to the coming of the Messiah, and that's another subject which I can't go into at the present moment. But we see the Mem is 40. In fact, the word 40 in English, in the placement value, is 84. And the word cleansing, check that out, cleansing, is 84. And the connection with that is that 40 has the power to cleanse. That's why it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. That's why Moses was up the mountain for 40 days. That's why the children of Israel had to wander for 40 years through the wilderness to cleanse them of the sin of not wanting to go into the land of Canaan. And the ritual bath which women and men use to purify themselves, and the high priest will go in there on the Day of Atonement. The ritual bath is called a mikvah, and that has a minimum volume of what is called 40 seah. Seah is an ancient Israel volume of liquid, and it had to contain 40 seot, 40 of this measure. So we see that 40 is connected with cleansing. Okay, so let's look at these 40s. We have 7 40s. I'm going to rub this off now. So if I were to write those 40s in the design of the flag, I'll get blue line, and then I'll get blue Magen David, and then I'll get blue line. Okay? And that is in the shape of a hexagon. And if I were to add the diagonals of that hexagon, I'll get 120, 120, and 120 all the way around. And anybody that knows a little bit about mathematics in terms of geometry will know that the interior angle of a regular hexagon is 120 degrees. I don't know if you can see that. I think this red is a better red. Okay, 120 degrees is the interior angle of a regular hexagon, and we've got that given here. Again, in my book it talks about the significance of 120, but I won't go into that now. So we've got 740s. Let's now look at what 740s are. 740s. Now, if I was to work out the placement value of 740s, S is 19, E is 5, 22, 5, 14, all the way along, I'll get 157. That's the placement value. A number that came to my mind that equals 157 is the number 64. 64 equals 157. 64, if I write it down as a number, equals 8 squared. It also equals 4 cubed. That's 4 times 4 times 4. It's 2 to the power of 5, I think. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Power of 6, sorry. 2 to the power of 6. So what's interesting, that the 4 to the power of 3 gives the idea of 4 times 4 times 4. And that's the same pattern as we've got here. 40, 40, 44, 4, 4. But what equals 64 is Israel. So if I can take 740s off, I know that's equal to, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 740s, alright? 740s equals 157, and 64 equals 157. Israel equals 64. Okay, placement values. And PV. And what else equals 64? Zion. Zion is another name for Israel, or a name for Jerusalem sometimes. PV. Chosen equals 64. The word in Hebrew for blue is kachol. Kachol in Hebrew, spelled kaf, chet, vav, lamed. I'm going to write the kaf a bit clearer. Lamed. And that's kachol, that's blue in Hebrew, and that equals in normal values 20 plus 8 plus 6 plus 30, and that equals 64. In Hebrew, the word for Israel is Yisrael. It's spelt Yud, Sin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed. If you work out the placement value of that, that was the normal value, put NV there. The placement value of this is 10, 21, 21 and 12 is 64. They're all 64. They're all related to, in fact, in Hebrew, word chosen is, the people is Am Segulah, the choice people in the Torah talks about Am Segulah. That's also 64. Segulah. Oops, missed out. Gimel, Segulah. Ayin is 16, 13, 15, 3, 12 and 5. We'll work that out. 16 and 13 is 29, 39, 44, 47, 48, 49, 59, 64. Okay? Oops, that's number 6. 64. So, all these are related to the flag of Israel through the number 64, which equals 157. Now, we're going to go to David. How is he related? So David equals we're going to use, well, first of all, the placement values for 1, 22, 9 and 4 we've had before is 40. The large values is 60, 1 is 34, 22 is 165, 9 is 42 and 4 is 60. If I add those together, I'll get 361. If I add those together, I'll get 401. We had that in an earlier, I think, lecture 2, where we show that David and Saul were both equal in their whole value, WV value, the large value plus the placement value, 401. Now, 316 is an interesting number because it's 19 squared. I can show you some interesting things about that number, but for another time. But if I take 361 as a word, 361, and I work out what that is, I'll get 280 as the PV. Okay? 280 is 7 40s. In other words, all those 7 40s added together, 7 times 40, I had 280. That's connected now to David, 361, and 361 is 280. If I want to connect, there's an interesting connection here with the word king. King is also 280, because King David was king. And to get that, we have to use the normal inner values of the word king. So king, K-I-N-G. Again, the normal values, K is 20 is the normal value, 20 is 107, this is 42, this is 66, and this is 65, and is 14, but the normal value is 50, and 50 is 66. If I now add that together, I got 9, 15, 20, I got 10, 20, 26, 28. So I've got a connection between David and King and David and the flag of Israel. So, okay, we'll give you another interesting connection with the Magen David. This is a little bit more complicated. So we're looking at the Magen David, and we're going to look at the large values. Magen David. We've just seen David is the large value to be 361. Okay. Magen, the large values are M is 99, A is 34, G is 65, E is 42, and N is 104. If I add that together, 13, 18, 24. I've got 9, 12, 18, 22, 24. 1, 2, 3. I get 344. If I add now those together for Magen David, I will get 1 and 4 is 5. 4 and 6 is 10. Let's carry 1. 3 and 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So now for the large value for David, Magen David, is 705. Now we look at the colour blue. So we're now going to show that blue is the intrinsic colour of the Magen David. B-L-U-E. Well, should have done it using the blue, but it's now back. So, blue, we're going to look at 3 gematria. Blue, we've already seen its placement value to be 40. Now we're going to look at the large value. Put it up here. That's 58, 87, 141, and 42. If I add those together, I get 10, 18, 4, 8, 16, 21, 22, 328. And I'm going to look at one other value. I'm going to look at the normal values. NV, does not like an N. One thing you can't do is rub out with your fingers. N, NV, normal values. B is 2, L is 30, U is 300, and E is 5. A good idea if you're going to follow these lectures through is to have a chart for you in front of you of all these different systems. It would help, but you can trust me. 2 and 5 is 7, 3 is and 337. Now add that together now. I get the units. 8 and 7 is 15, carry 1. 2 and 3 is 5 plus 1 is 6. Says I. No. Units. 4 plus 2 plus 3. 4 plus 2 is 6 plus 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. And then we got 3 and 3 plus 1 is 7. Right, okay. Again, 0, 8 and 7 is 15, carry 1. 4 plus 2, this is 10. 4 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. 9 plus 1 is 10, carry 1. 3 and 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. 705. And that was the large value of Magen David, 705. So we see that there is an intrinsic connection between blue and the Magen David. Now you can see I'm adding 3 systems here together. I can add 4 systems together. We'll talk about the probabilities of this in a later lecture, because obviously the more systems you use, the more likely you're going to find a connection. But there is not a probability of 1 that you will find a connection, even though altogether there is 15 actual permutations. I think about 2 or 3 of them never seem to occur at all. So there's like 12, 13 permutations that are used. That doesn't mean to say that they're going to always find a link, but I always do. So that means to say when you always find a link, then the probability becomes less and less likely the more links you discover. But that's a subject matter for another occasion. So we've got now the connection between blue and the flag and David. David equals blue. There is another connection between David and blue. I might not have written it down here, but we will leave that. So we're now going to look at whether there's a connection between David and a star. Now we've had the large value of David to be 361, 19 squared. We're going to look at the word star, because it's also called the Star of David. And we're going to use the NIV values. That means that S is 100 and 100 is 108. T is 200, 200 is 132. A is 1, 34. R is 90 and 90 is 87. So if I now work out that, I will get 8 and 2 is 10, 4 and 7 is 11, that's 21, carry 2, 2 and 8 is 10, 16, carry 1, 1, 2, 3, 361. Therefore in the NIV value, that equals to David in the LV value, the large value. So we have an interrelationship between David and a star. Now, you can't have star being a large value at the same with David, because that would mean that David is a star or very much connected to being a star, but he's not. This is something further distance away from what David really is, but nevertheless there is a connection between him and between him and the concept of a star. So we're going to look at the Star of David, and we'll see whether it's got some interesting properties about it. I know you'll find on the internet, on YouTube, you'll find lectures on the Star of David being connected to 666, the number of the devil, the number of the beast, or whatever you want to call it. There is no bad number. I can show you some very positive things connected to 666. The number itself is not a bad number. So it has a power. And everything in with the power can be used for good or for bad. That's technology. You can create energy from nuclear power, or you can create a bomb and blow people up, God forbid. So we have the idea that numbers they signify certain things, certain, let's say, vibrations or energies within people, within events, or whatever. So, and those energies have different levels, just like an atom has different energy levels with the electron belts, we call the different energy levels. So there's energies that are different in people, in objects, different realities which they exist within. So that is a subject which we'll go into more deeply on another occasion. But we're going to look at the Star of David. And the Star of David is one of the interesting magic stars. You can do this with various star systems, a pentagram, the 5-pointer star, 8-pointer star. There are various magic stars. But this is one. You've done magic squares before with numbers. This is a magic star with numbers. And this one relates to the number 26, where every line has to add up to 26, using the numbers from 1 to 13. 13 actually goes in the middle. It's not actually part of the lines, but you'll see its connection with something else in a minute. So I'm sticking 13 in the middle. Remember, the letter mem, which we said was connected to water, and there's 40 as a normal value, it equals 13 as a placement value. It's the 13th letter. So, another connection to the Star of David. So, let's write down the numbers that make this the magic star. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay? So, if I were to add up all these lines, I'll get to 26. If you've got a pen and paper, you can jot this down and test it out yourself. I'll just show a few. 6 and 9 is 15, 7 is 22, plus 4 is 26. Let's try this one. 2 and 12 is 14, 14 and 11 is 25, plus 1 is 26. I do just this one. 3 and 12 is 15, plus 5 is 20, plus 6 is 26. They're all 26. And added to that, if you add the vertices, you will get 26. So 26 is the gematria of God. G-D, G-O-D. G is 7, O is 15, D is 4. We had this when we were talking about filling, last lecture, lecture 7. If I add that together, I'll get 22 plus 4 is 26. And that is the gematria of God's name, which are called the tetragrammaton, or tetragram, which is 4 letters. And Jewish people do not pronounce it as it's written. So those letters are Yud, Hey, Vov, Hey. Yud is 10, Hey is 5, Vov is 6, and Hey is 5. Gives you 26. So we can see a connection between God and the name Yud, K, Vov, K. And the Magen David. So now you're going to get an idea why I'm referring this to be the Spirit of God, because this is connected to the Spirit of God that hovered over the face of the waters. The waters, the lower waters, the upper waters, and the first day of creation. In the second verse, it says that the Spirit of God, the Ruach Elohim, hovered over the face of the waters. Let's look at what the face of the waters is. The face of the waters, if I take the word mayim, which is what we said before, was water, mem, yud, final mem. The face of the water must be this letter. Because, remember we talked about God in the tefillin, that the G was the face of God, and the D at the end is the back of God. And that was the G was the tefillin, the box at the front, and at the back is the Daled, the D. So the face of God, the face of the water would be the mem. And in writing the mem in a Torah scroll, the scribe won't write it like this. This is sort of just a block image of it. But it's written as two letters, as many letters have got written as 2 or 3 letters. So it's written as a kaf and a letter vav. Something like that. I'm not scribe. Okay, so it's written like that, and it is a kaf and a vav. The kaf has the normal value of 20, the vav has the value of 6, 26. So we see that God is connected to the face of the water, to the letter mem. So we'll look at this Ruach Elokim, which is the Spirit of God. In Hebrew it's Ruach Elokim. And in Hebrew I spell that as Ruach, means a spirit, or wind as well. Elokim, I'm going to write that with a dash because I don't want to write God's name on the board. Elo. Right, so if I write that word Ruach Elokim, this is 200, this is the normal values, 214, and Elokim is 1, 30, 5, 10 and 40, and that is 86. And that will give me, if I add those two together, 300. Let's go back to star. Well, I now connect Ruach Elokim to the star. Actually, would like to keep this up for a little bit longer. Star, S-T-A-R, and we're going to look at the large values. We looked at the normal inner values, which was 361, connected to David. Now star, we'll look at the large values, 86, 107, 34, and 73. And if you add that together, you'll get 300. So we see that the Ruach Elokim has a connection to star. Which star? This star. Why particularly? Well, not just this star, but this actually this translates into very many different forms. You don't have to just keep this as 13 numbers. You can actually put a dot in between. You can create an inner structure which will have 37, and then you can do it again and you'll get 73, which is something I go into my book on water to show you all these finer inner structures within this. It's really quite amazing what you can get. So, but this basic structure gives you God, 26, and if you add up all the numbers together, that is 1 to 13. From 1 to 13, 1 plus 2 all the way to 13, we call that put 13 there. We call that triangle 13. Triangle 13 equals 91. Okay, if you add 13 plus 12 plus 11, 10, etc., all the way down to 1, you'll get 91. The word spirit in English, which is what we translate Ruach, Spirit of God, the word spirit in English has a placement value of 91. So now we've linked spirit also to this shape. Now, one last thing I'll give you. One last thing. This outer set of numbers, it's quite interesting, so is the inner set, but we're going to look at the outer set. The outer set, just an interesting, while I'm doing this, not the 5 and 8, 58 is the placement value for star. You've got 64 there, which is Israel, which we've had before. And this number here, 1211, is also connected to God, which I might give you another occasion. 97 is serpent. So I won't show you the connections of those at the moment. It's a rather deep subject about what the serpent was. So we're looking at these numbers that go around. We've got 1, we've got 2, we've got 3, we've got 4, and then we jump to 6, and then 10. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 and 10. If I work out what the placement value of all those are, so I get 34, 58, 3 is 56, 4 is 60, 6 is 52, and 10 is 39. If I add those together, I'll get, that's 10, and 8 and 2 is 10, that's 29. And I've got 8 and 11 is 19, plus 8 is 27, 28, 29. So I've got 299. Now I'm going to take the name Elohim, Aleph, put a line there, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. And I'm going to find out the normal inner value of God's name Elohim. And that is 34, Lamed is 30, 30 is 100, Hey is 5, 5 is 42, and I'll finish this off. And if I add all that together, I'll get 4 and 2 and 4, that's 10 plus 9 is 19. I've got 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 3 is 10, 8 and 1 is 9, so I've got another 19, and I've got 1 and 1 is 2. So as a normal inner value, I've got God linked to this outer set of values. And it goes on. There's a lot that can be done with this. So I hope you've enjoyed this this lecture. It's again quite complicated. Once you've got all these systems in your mind and how they work and connect together, you will see this to be something which is like, I will suppose we could call it like a code that allows us to access inner structures and inner insights and messages that are there within things that we would call important to us in life, or events that have taken place that are significant, and these things come together in a very profound way that gives us the idea that we're not alone, we're not evolving by some ad hoc evolutionary maneuver that is all by chance. There is a design, there is a pattern, there is a purpose and a reason for everything, and that should give us a little bit of confidence to know that in the end of the day there is something or some force, call it what you like, God, creator, that is behind all this, and that it works within man, and we evolve and we're going in a certain way that is destined. So I shall end on that note. If I look too much more on what I've written, I'll probably spend another half an hour. So we'll leave that, and I hope you enjoyed that. Please join us for lecture 9 when it happens. I can't find my thing. Here it is. Okay, we'll see you soon. Be well.